This amazing sport has had its share of landmark moments. Bruno and Larry at Shea, Hulk and Andre at WrestleMania 3, a flair for the gold at Starrcade. But it's also had its gobbledygookers, brawls for all, and Flair being buried in the desert. This is wrestling's only real countdown show, voted on by you, the fans, through our online poll at kayfabecommentaries.com. So without further ado, here are your most awful angles. ECW is synonymous with grit, violence, blood, vulgarity, and sex. Its messiah, Paul Heyman, was the perfect, edgy, and dangerous carnival barker to conduct its symphony of bloodshed. So when WWE took the reins, it was only natural that they'd maximize the power of that dangerous legacy by putting it in the hands of a similarly edgy and dangerous owner.
Why not? That's my comment. Why not?
What was wrong with that?
No, take it off the list. But I mean, it's on the list, I'm sure, but it can't be number 5, would you think? The other 4's got to be really good, right?
Did she have her breast enhancements at that time?
She actually got it right after. Right after.
Well, you know what? If she would have got them prior, maybe if the shoe would have fit, or the cup would have fit, or I don't know what I'm talking about.
Was I there then?
Wow. I don't know who was doing the voting, but that one went.
I got the axe by then.
What was so awful about it? Come on. Again, they were just like everything else. They were trying to do business. They had gotten they were trying to create controversy. See, sometimes I think people look at these things and, oh my God, that's awful. This is the internet crowd and everything. To the fan that sits up in the stands, they didn't think it was awful. They were like, oh, what's going to happen? So I didn't think it was that. It was awful, but it wasn't that awful.
That was in reply to Shane McMahon on WCW, right? Yeah, that was stupid. There was the invasion, right? The invasion angle where the first time they tried to make ECW look like a complete jabroni undercard of. I remember seeing on TV. It looked like what we look like on our TV, a bunch of misfits that didn't belong. And although ECW proved over time that it was a bigger force and a better entity than WCW, I think at that time it was just reaching and there was just too much going on. It was too convoluted, too many people, and a bunch of wrestlers that probably could have went on to do something that got lost in the shuffle. Yeah, I thought they should just let the WCW purchase thing play out and feud, but apparently nobody gave half a fuck about WCW and still doesn't.
That was again a part of the wrestling business with me. I kind of just tuned out all the ECW stuff. I wasn't a big fan of the ECW company. Wasn't a big fan of what ECW stood for. Whenever you got to try to get blood and guts and bleeding to make money, I just think it's a cheap. It's just like getting cheap heat in a wrestling ring. It's cheap heat getting that kind of reaction, you know. So I really didn't pay too much attention to it. But I did follow the angle a little bit, and it did flop. So I'll tell you that it wasn't a very good idea. You know, that's all I can remember of it.
Well, Stephanie's in the family, and she really does own it. So she could have that title, and as far as being the bloodiest and the ugliest and, you know, all that, it isn't anymore. So she's actually, by taking the name of owning it, she's done it wonders, because she brought it from being this big to this big. So good for her.
Well, I mean, she grew up in the business. Her family's in the business. She would know the business. So, sure, let's say she'd be a good representative.
She's a very bright girl. I watched her grow up. From a lot of the creative work was done in the weekends at Vince's house during the time that I was there. And I watched her as a young kid in the summertime out by the pool with her young friends, and watched her grow up in front of my eyes. And she's a very, very smart gal that I think she gets that a lot from her mother.
I didn't think that was awful. I mean, Shane came in and said he owned WCW, so what was it? That to me wasn't awful at all. What I thought was awful is the fact that they even wanted the company, period. What were they buying? They had nothing to offer. ECW was as dead as Kelsey's fucking nuts. You know, they were drawing, what, 400, 500, 600 people? There was no company there.
It's so sad when a company gets taken over by somebody that isn't original. And of course, Stephanie McMahon was not original, owning ECW. So that's always sad. And is she hardcore? I don't know.
If anything, I would have given it to Shane, not Stephanie. That makes more sense. But I don't know, Stephanie's a tough chick, so, you know, and maybe they thought that would have, I don't know, maybe they looked at seniority in the family and the size of the companies, who knows, but maybe that would have been a better fit for Shane. Maybe they should have left it as is and not taken it over. You know, that's my opinion.
Yeah, she's hardcore to have, like, what is she up to, 20 babies now? No, she's, I guess she's hardcore in that sense. A strong woman, I guess that makes her hardcore, but taking over ECW, I don't think so.
She wasn't active when I was there. Evidently, she's done a good job, and the company's successful, so I can't judge that. But as far as that being one of the top angles, I would have never thunk it.
Every time the wrestling business went in the shitter, they try to tap into the ECW pulse. Even a few years later, One Night Stands came back. TNA tried it last summer. So you know nobody's going after nobody's going after the Thunder reunion or the the Nitro reunion. Nobody gives a fuck about those guys. It's always ECW. And you know what? In 15 years, when Axl Rotten's like 700 pounds and still outlived everybody, they'll still be tapping into that vein. Pun intended.
I'll call Paul out on this. I never worked for him, but if I had worked for him, I guess the last 2 pay-per-views they had, he didn't pay any of the wrestlers. None of them got paid, but yet then he takes a check from Vince for a couple of $1 million for his video library. He didn't go say, "Here, fellas, here's your money I owe you." I would have been standing there when he got the check, say, "Hey, motherfucker, you got to pay me now."